They're trying to prove this point. It keeps getting found in nature, keeps getting found in nature, keeps getting found in nature. Therefore, they can synthetically produce it and make it into a supplement. Therefore, their DMAA is legal. Therefore, the FDA seizure is illegal. They want their stuff back and they want to be able to legally sell it. Anyway, we're not done. Now, Jared Wheaton team are going for broke. They are going full on conspiracy mode. Bust out the Alex Jones video.
Welcome to PricePlow.
What's up, YouTube, PricePlow Nation, and interested parties everywhere? This is Mike with PricePlow, and as you can see, I got a long one for you today. And that's because I've been reading hundreds, if not 1,000 pages of legal documents pertaining to the Hi-Tech Pharmaceuticals versus United States federal government lawsuit, particularly the FDA, regarding the legality of DMAA for use in supplements. We are finally getting down to the wire where we're going to have a law on the books, or so we hope. And at least some judgments from a United States District Court judge. And so a lot of evidence has come out, and it's time to really discuss what's happened here without having you have to go through all these documents. So you'll have to excuse, I do have a lot of notes here because I need to get this right. I can't misquote people and everything, so bear with me. So let's first off, the way it's gonna work is that I gotta say all my disclaimers. And then after that, we're gonna get into the FDA side of the story, which is actually surprisingly short, concise, and to the point. And then we're gonna get into the Hi-Tech Pharmaceuticals part of the story, and that's where the fun begins, because if you're interested in conspiracy and allegations and all sorts of drama and Jared Wheat getting deposed and calling certain people names and making allegations against people, then you're in for a wild ride, because this one gets interesting. And so bear with me. If I have time, I'm going to insert images into this and maybe give you some timestamps to skip around. I need to go over the background of the case to get everyone up to speed. So first, let's get right into it. I'm going to give you as little opinion as possible here. Everyone knows I'm an opinionated person, and I'm going to talk about some of my potential biases, but I'm really trying to approach this as if I was a judge who's just dumped all this data. Realize that this hasn't gone to court yet. This has all been done in depositions. I don't have the videotapes, but I have the PDFs, transcripts of those depositions. And I'm reading this. I'm trying to read both sides as if, I am a judge, reading these two motions for summary judgment, reading their statements of facts, and then we need to decide where this case goes. And so I'm trying to approach it completely non-biased. But that said, here's my disclaimers. First off, I am not a lawyer. I have zero legal training. I am just a dude with a website who is reading a bunch of legal documents that are publicly available online for 10 cents a piece. I probably paid a good bit of money for that. I don't care, because this is interesting and it's worth it. And I am more personally interested than professionally interested, but I do have professional interests. And so I do need to tell you that Hi-Tech Pharmaceuticals is a sponsor of my website, PricePlow. And so they have the #1 spot on the homepage. They have the one and only banner ad on the blog. We try not to slam you too many pop-up ads and all that. But we do get paid by Hi-Tech Pharmaceuticals. Now and they're also a customer of our behind-the-scenes data mining tools as well. Now, with all that said, I don't need Jared Wheat's money. PricePlow is profitable with or without Hi-Tech Pharmaceuticals. I do not need Hi-Tech Pharmaceuticals. The model works with or without DMAA. And so if DMAA does get banned, it will just be the next product up. If Hi-Tech Pharmaceuticals doesn't want to sponsor our site anymore, we have many more brands waiting in the wings. So in that aspect, many of you, if you don't think if you think it's still biased, then you could just check out of the video. But honestly, I don't need Wheat's money. We are not owned by Wheat or Hi-Tech Pharmaceuticals. And let me just check what else I got. And I hunted them down, and I wanted to write about them, and I wanted them to be the featured product back when it was 2014 when they put out Hydroxy Elite. It wasn't the other way around. I chased down Hi-Tech Pharma because, as you can see, I am personally interested in this. I'm a fan of DMAA. Always have been, probably always will be, when used in proper doses, when you have a clean bill of health. In fact, I like to use it at lower doses than what's reported in the toxicology report. So let me see what else I said. And so with all that said, I am a fan, but I'm going to try to hit this like I was a judge who just received a data dump. Finally, PricePlow does make money on the sales of all products in that when we send you, it's an affiliate-based model typically. Sometimes there's a couple stores that pay per click. But if I send you to subs.com and you go and buy Hydroxy Elite, or you go and buy Jacked Up or APS Mesomorph, or just a teleprotein, we do receive a commission. So we receive an affiliate commission, but the model works for any product. Doesn't matter if it's DMAA or if it's a whey protein product. So doesn't matter if DMAA gets banned, next thing up. But I do personally like using the product. So let's get back to it. So let's first off start with the background of the whole situation. Now, DMAA is, you're going to see a lot of, if you look in the documents, there's a lot of names for it. 1,3-dimethylamylamine, 1,3-DMAA, methylhexanamine, MHA, and then there's another 3-letter acronym that's used for once in a while, like DMP or something. Not DNP, but there's another one. MHA is occasionally used. But anyway, so this is a stimulant. It's a stimulant compound that was originally created by Eli Lilly in 1944. Yes, the big pharma giant. And they were using it as a nasal decongestant, and they were using it in actually extremely high doses that are higher than anything we see in supplements, but as a nasal decongestant. They patented it in 94, I believe, or in 1944, and then they created it and brought it to market in 1971 as the drug named Forthane. And it was used until 1983, where it was discontinued for market reasons, not for health effects. And that was one of the expert witnesses stated that. And so it is agreed by both expert witnesses on both sides that this compound had never been isolated or seen alone before 1944. Now, the question we're going to get to, though, is whether or not it's found in geranium oil. And that is the heavy topic, and is covered in depth here. And so after ephedrine happened, after ephedrine, alkaloids and ephedrine were banned officially from supplement use. They are found naturally in the ephedrine plant, but the FDA decided they were unsafe, which I respectfully disagree with, but they were abused a little bit too much, bad manufacturing, a lot of dumb things happened back then. And so all the court cases were finally completely appealed, and appeals were done in 2006. After that, the industry goes on and looks for the next big thing. And so in this case, there was between 2006 and 2008, there was a certain there's a certain researcher, a chemist whose name we don't need to bring up, but he found some studies, he found some compounds, and he found that there was a study by a gentleman named Ping in China. And that was a 1991 or 1996 study. And they discovered that this ingredient, this stimulant ingredient, was actually found in nature in geraniums, in geraniums at a concentration in the oil of geraniums, actually, in a concentration of 0.69%. And therefore, he declared that this was, good for him to use as a supplement, and then he put out a product that became popular in some of the discussion forums, but it wasn't like crazy popular. But then, as we all know, 2010 happened, and USP Labs put out the third version of their pre-workout supplement, Jacked, sometimes called Jacked 3D, but it's pronounced Jacked and spelled Jacked 3D. And then shortly thereafter, they put out their super popular fat burner, Oxy Elite Pro. And so earlier on that first product, it was, I think they trademarked it as geranamine. And so, it was moderately successful. That Ping study had to be translated from Mandarin. That Ping study was in China, so it was translated from Mandarin. There's a lot of arguments over whether, over that translation and stuff. We're going to get into a little bit of that. And so a lot of you guys know the public history. Jacked and Oxy Elite Pro absolutely exploded. Sales through the roof. I mean, there was basically Jacked, and then there was everything else in the pre-workout industry. And it took things by storm. And so they eventually, though, there were a few injuries that the media and the FDA, and not necessarily the FDA, but the media did attempt to connect to Jacked. These people did have, they had DMAA in their bloodstream. And meanwhile, in New Zealand, some people were taking party pills that had this ingredient, and they were having severe problems. What's noted in the toxicology report is that they were taking doses of like 600 milligrams, which is like 10 times more than the dose that anyone should recommend. And so while that happened, this ingredient started getting a bad rap, and eventually the FDA got involved. And by 2012, the warning letters were sent out to about 15 companies using using DMAA, and there were and those companies, most of them folded. USP Labs did not, and the FDA urged that DMAA was not found in nature and therefore is not DSHEA compliant, is not a dietary ingredient. And so USP Labs stuck in there. They actually commissioned another study. They cited that pink study saying, hey, this is found in nature. And by 2013, something happened. They folded, and then the Department of Justice has since gotten involved a little bit with some other stuff. But they did show some emails where like USP Labs was just dumping this stuff out in the market, trying to make sales and everything, or allegedly trying to make sales. And ultimately, some of that stuff is still kind of out there if you're like on eBay. I actually have a tub in my freezer staying for a fun day. But anyway, and so ultimately, USP Labs had to dump $8 million of product down the drain. I think GNC might have been a little bit involved, and then it was kind of squashed there. 2013, end of DMAA. However, there was one company that was selling it the whole time, not in as crazy a doses or as crazy as like Jack, but they never received a warning letter. And that was Hi-Tech Pharmaceuticals. Now, I'm going to put some words in his mouth, but Jared Wheat will most likely be the first person to tell you that that he claims FDA didn't send him a warning letter because they knew that he would sue them. And that's probably true because that's ultimately what ended up happening. And so, in 2013, he was selling he was mostly fat burners. He was selling a bunch of fat burners that contained DMAA alongside of his Acacia Regulula, kind of like his ephedrine fat burner replacements. And in 2013, the FDA raided Hi-Tech Pharmaceuticals warehouse near Atlanta, Georgia, and they really kind of quarantined it. And so that product's like sitting there in a corner, like no one touches that. That's like federal, don't touch stuff. And it's $2 million worth of product. At that point, so there is an actual suit. This actual court case is called like the United States government versus undisclosed amounts of 1,3-dimethylamylamine. And then Hi-Tech Pharmaceuticals countersued. And they countersued for violating the Seizure Act that they tried to take it with. They filed that in D.C., but then it was agreed that everything should be combined into one case in terms of is the seizure legal and is the supplement legal, because they're kind of intertwined. Like if the supplement is legal, then the seizure is illegal, and if the supplement is illegal, then the seizure was legal. So we pull these all together, and we have one major case occurring in Georgia. And so what I'm going to talk about next is basically the lawsuit. So that kind of brings us up to where we are today. So allow me to take a quick sip here. And this is not a stimulant. And so it's March 1st, 2017 right now. And so as of right now, we only have a judge deciding things. And from what I understand, he is an older gentleman. And I'm trying to like look at it from his point of view. There's a lot of technology going back and forth here. And so it is a judge's responsibility to understand this. But what we're hearing are depositions. We're not getting any testimonies like on the stand or anything. No one's going to court. No one's like, there's no jury trial yet, but that may happen. So the three things that could happen is that, so right now, both U.S. government and Hi-Tech Pharmaceuticals have filed motions for summary judgment. They say, all right, judge, we've delivered you this evidence. Here's our case. Here's our statement of facts. Make a ruling. What are we doing next? And so, if the U.S. government's motion is denied, their motion for summary judgment is denied, then Hi-Tech Pharmaceuticals wins by default. Basically saying, the judges say, no, I don't believe this. Hi-Tech Pharmaceuticals wins by default. If Hi-Tech Pharma's motion is granted, Hi-Tech Pharmaceuticals wins. But if the government's motion is approved, I'm making the wrong word, but if it's accepted or whatever, then the U.S. government would then win, make the seizure legal and the ingredient illegal. And then finally, if he says, okay, I don't have enough information, or there's a conflict of information between these two things that we cannot resolve, then we need to go to court, and this is going to be a jury trial, and then we'll be here for another 18 months. So that's where we're at now. So I'm going to quickly get into the FDA's case, and it's quick because it's actually short and concise. And so the best way to really evaluate this is to take a look at their motion for summary judgment and the statements of material facts. Those are the two articles that guide you through this. And so down the rabbit hole we're going to go here. And so the FDA's case is actually pretty straightforward, and it's easy to read. And this is a good thing, because in the previous parts of this case, they were writing way too lawyer-esque, which may or may not work sometimes, but you can clearly tell the judge doesn't write this way, and the judge didn't like this. And so this is straightforward writing. Anyone can read this stuff that the FDA is providing. And it's not common that you see government documentation that's readable. And so +1 to the FDA for actually, making a good halftime adjustment. And so their case is really, really simple. They say, you know what? DMAA is not found in geraniums, nor is it found in nature. DMAA is not grass or generally regarded as safe. Based on, and then quote unquote, they say this, based on these two answers, the rest of the legal issues resolve themselves. And so that's the most of their case. Now, instead, they're actually calling it a food additive. And so it's a food additive that doesn't have exemptions. It's not an animal drug. It's not like a color, whatever, red number 40. It's an illegal food additive, which would then make it illegal to put in a supplement, which then makes the supplements adulterated. That's the FDA's case. And so diving a little bit deeper, they talk about how the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, FD&C, regulates supplements. And then we've seen a lot of this. So they say pretty much substances are either dietary ingredients, substances that are generally recognized as safe, or they're food additives. So it's kind of like one of the three is the way I'm interpreting this. And that's my interpretation right there. So I'll let you know when I'm throwing in an opinion or I'm throwing in an interpretation. Otherwise, I'll let you know I'm quoting it. And then so as described by DSHEA, the Dietary Supplements Health and Education Act of 1994, we've all seen this. In dietary ingredients are either A, a vitamin, B, a mineral, C, an herb or other botanical. This is the one where we got the argument right here. Is it a botanical? And or D, an amino acid, E, a dietary substance for use by man to supplement the diet by increasing the total dietary intake, or F, a concentrate, metabolite, constituent, extract, or combination of any ingredient described in clause A, B, C, D, or E. And so C is where we got the C, right? Yeah, C is where we have the argument. And so they say since it is none of these, it's not an ingredient. It's not a supplement. It's not a dietary ingredient. Instead, they call it a food additive, and that's defined under Act 21 of USC 321S. Long definition. And I've never really dug into the food additive thing, so I can't really speak much about it. But I just want to read a little bit. They say, thus, if the substance is not generally recognized by a qualitative expert as safe and does not fall within another exemption from the food additive definition, such as a new animal drug, it is a food additive. As set forth herein, DMAA is a food additive. Food additives are deemed unsafe unless the FDA approves or exempts them. And DMAA gets neither approval nor exemption. Thus, DMAA is not a supplement, not grass, and is an unapproved food additive, making it illegal to use in any supplement. That's the FDA's case. Pretty basic. It's not this, not this, not this. Done. And so they have they really only have one expert witness testimony in their case, and what they really are trying to drive home is their one expert witness testimony, and not in their case, but it's in the memorandum to support that motion for summary judgment. It is Dr. Paula Brown, who's an expert botanist, and what they need to do is they need to try to prove not only is it not found in nature, but that geraniums can't even produce this. It's not physically possible. The biological mechanism is not known or is not possible. And so that's where, if this does go to court, that actually might be the cornerstone of the case. This might turn into a big botany course. And so they say the United States' uncontroverted expert testimony establishes that there is no known plausible biological pathway by which a geranium plant could make DMAA. Thus, DMAA is not a constituent of the geranium plant and is not a dietary ingredient. So they are going to break out a little bit in this argument here. They actually, in their memorandum, their motion for the summary judgment, they use Jared Wheat's deposition, and they use Wheat's admission that there's no such thing as a DMAA plant. And so I shared this on Facebook, and everyone got a kick of this. And so he says this, and so this is just give you a hint of what's to come here. He says, I think the science is clear that DMAA is in geranium. I mean, our tests show that. Our subsequent tests with Intertech and with University of Memphis have shown that. The government's tests have shown that, even though you guys have, how do I say this nice, suborned perjury in my book with your experts on you all's belief that it doesn't occur in nature. But I think it's a foregone conclusion. Anybody that is being intellectually honest would say it is in geranium. So yes, that was a quote by Jared Wheat there, and he's making allegations that they are suborning perjury here. And so that's where we're going on this case. So hang in there with me, please. Later on, he says, when you look at the Zhang study, when you look at the Khan study, when it's not perjured, when you look at the Intertech study, when you look at the Memphis study, in conjunction with what we already know, we're batting 6 for 6. So he's arguing the complete opposite. But, I'm still kind of on the FDA side of things, so I'm jumping ahead a little bit. But then the reason I bring this up, though, is because the FDA does argue against the DMAA studies that USP Labs had been citing and now that Hi-Tech is citing. And so, for instance, they say the mere presence of a chemical in a sample does not reveal how it got there. And so one of the things that comes up is, hey, are there contaminants? Is there fertilizer? Did the fertilizer have DMAA in it that somehow get into the plant? Did they water it with DMAA water? We don't know what exactly had happened. Perhaps in the Ping study, that study's not, they're saying that study is just not sufficient. That was, it was translated from Mandarin. No one's ever talked to this Ping guy. We don't even know if he's alive at this point. It's been 20 years later. Hopefully he is. Hopefully he's doing pretty good out there. But we don't know a lot of things. Was there contamination? For instance, Intertech found DMAA, but its study was not designed to show whether DMAA naturally occurs in geraniums. And so they want more than just finding the DMAA in the plant. They want to find a way to make sure it's a natural constituent, that DMAA can actually be created by geranium. Now, and then that could totally branch off into a whole another part of law, and that's up to the judge to decide how far this needs to go. And so in the Fleming study, it reported detecting DMAA in 3 samples at levels of 69 to 254 parts per billion. And so in all these studies, you're going to note that there is not a ton of DMAA that's ever found. And so that could be another thing, but we'll get into that side of the argument later. No one's arguing that we're squeezing geraniums and putting it into supplements at this point. Just like your vitamin C pill is most likely, unless it's a food-based multivitamin, your vitamin C pill is ascorbic acid, which is synthesized in a lab. That's what's happening with the DMAA supplements right now. No one's arguing that. So with the Fleming study here, it's the same argument. It was not made to determine the natural production of DMAA. The FDA wants more. They want it to see naturally produced. And so they're saying this is an important step because there could be fertilizers, there could be dirty water. These studies could have been spiked, so on and so forth. And they point out, hey, USP Labs paid for this study. What happened? They didn't check the fertilizer quality. What if it was, some sort of DMAA fertilizer? And so soil wasn't tested. And then one of the 3 samples tested was actually by the Fleming study was the same sample of flour or whatever. It might have been oil. I'm not completely sure, but the same sample that was done at the Intertech study. So they have problems with some of the studies. And they say, this is garbage, this is garbage. Now, here's an important thing, is that in their motion for summary judgment, they do not mention any other studies. And these are the studies where the drama comes out. Big time allegations, we got to be careful with what we quote here. Because everything we're stating, and I should have disclaimed this earlier, everything we're talking about, nothing is true until the judge says so. These are all just allegations. Nothing is real until as established by a court of law, be it by the judge or by a jury of 12 of our peers. And so, they do mention some of these other studies in their statement of facts. So I'm not sure what has more weight, but a lot of the studies, a lot of the expert witnesses' testimonies that they got, they didn't use. And so that might be a clue there. So then the FDA gets back into the whole GRAS NDI thing, and then they get into a little bit into safety, and they quote increased hypertension, which no one's arguing. You do typically get a little bit of a boost of your blood pressure when you take DMAA, especially in the higher doses and everything. That's why I like to keep it at a low dose. And then they talk about the Department of Defense report, which we'll get into. And this is where it was a safety review panel, and quote unquote, it concluded that the available evidence supports an elevated health risk associated with the use of DMAA containing products. But the data in that study is pretty interesting. They also say no one knows the maximum dose of DMAA. This is the FDA saying that. And so I believe that's true. And but I also don't know if that's a law that we need to have that or not. And then also they go through some other rule processes, legal making. They do say, though, this is a Jared Weed comment, that he also says, but they agree, FDA warning letters do not constitute final agency action. But the way they flip it is that, thus, Hi-Tech may not seek review of FDA's actions under the APA, which is the acronym for the enforcement action taken. So this isn't final agency action, so you can't question it. That's the way I'm interpreting it. I'm not sure if that's what they're saying there, but that seems the way I'm interpreting it. So I can assume that Hi-Tech Pharmaceuticals has a major beef with that because, who's going to watch the watchers? So, I'm going to pause this video real quick because we're going to get to the Hi-Tech side next, and that's where the fun is. I'm 25 minutes in, and I want to make sure this file saves. Okay, so you suffered with me for 25 minutes. Now it's time for Hi-Tech Pharmaceuticals and the whole Jared Wheat show. And so, before we get too much into that, we do need to rewind to 2010. And because, that's where things blow up with Jack. You need to remember at that point that label, it not only said 1,3-dimethylamine, but it said geranium stem on the label. And so, what was happening is that there's tons of athletes that were using Jacked and actually Pro, but we're really going to talk about Jacked in the scope of athletes. And no one's arguing this stuff is a performance enhancer, like for sure. And you can accomplish feats that you just otherwise couldn't do while on DMAA for the most part, and that's why everyone was loving it. But in 2010, and don't quote me on that, but around 2010, WADA, or the World Anti-Doping Agency, made it into a banned substance, and a lot of athletes were failing drug tests left and right. Meanwhile, some of the lower quality drug tests were alleged to pop people for amphetamine tests, but I've never really seen that. But someone out there may be able to comment. But either way, it became a banned substance. A lot of people are failing drug tests. And so enter USADA, which is the United States Anti-Doping Agency. This is a non-governmental organization, NGO. It's a type of nonprofit. So you could read it on Wikipedia. It's not a government organization, but they typically get money from like volunteers or like donations and stuff. And so this organization helps the athletes determine, hey, what's a banned substance. They do testing. They have supplement411.org, which I've talked about in the last video. And so Hi-Tech Pharmaceuticals alleges, and this is where they get involved because they're seeing a lot of people failing drug tests. They're seeing a lot of people talking about these supplements, and they're saying like, what are these people taking that's making all these failures for MHA methylhexanamine, which is DMAA. And so in Hi-Tech's statement of facts, they quote, Amy Eichner, with virtually no training or expertise in chemistry, became convinced that DMAA presented a health risk to athletes and that it could not be found in the geranium plant, but was rather a drug. And so that's Hi-Tech Pharmaceuticals' voice, not mine. And so Amy Eichner is someone who was deposed in this case, and it's a very interesting deposition. And so she was working at USADA at the time, and so she has, it seems like she said she has like undergrad chemistry classes, but she does have a PhD in neuroscience. And she said, but I am not a chemist in the traditional sense of synthesizing, analyzing chemical compounds. And so Hi-Tech Pharma is, stating some of these facts here. And then she said, my primary role is to provide advice to athletes about whether a substance is prohibited or not. Basically, I help them understand the prohibited list. And so her job was, I'm assuming that her job was made a little bit difficult with a million people using Jacked, and it wasn't a million, it was like 100,000, or I don't even know. It was a ton of people using Jacked. A lot of them athletes, a lot of them popping for tests and not understanding. You got to cross-reference all ingredients on your banned substances list. People. Anyway, so I'm yelling at people from 7 years ago. And so, rightfully so, she wanted to get down to the bottom of this. What is this geranium stem? And also, like she mentions, and I don't want to put words in her mouth, but she mentions kind of along the lines of, do we need to ban all geranium? Because geranium oil is used in like salad dressing occasionally. It's used as a fragrance on your skin, I believe. I've never used a geranium oil, I don't think, but it's got all sorts of uses. Do they need to ban it from everything? Because stuff can get absorbed through your skin. They needed to figure it out. So Eichner began communicating to the FDA. And so in point 9 of Hi-Tech Pharma's statement of facts, and there's about 80 of them, so let's go. Eichner expressed concerns about DMAA to the Food and Drug Administration, FDA. On October 13th, 2010, Dr. Robert J. Moore, an FDA supervisor in the Division of Dietary Supplements, I'm quoting, this is out of Hi-Tech Pharma's statement of indisputed facts, or so they say. Okay, it's Robert Moore. He's director in the division. He's a supervisor in the Division of Dietary Supplements. Advised Eichner that DMAA is found in many plants, that plants are dietary ingredients under DSHEA, and that DMAA appears to be a dietary ingredient under DSHEA because it is a constituent of another dietary ingredient, i.e. a plant. So you have someone at the FDA telling Eichner over at USADA that, hey, this looks to be like a dietary ingredient. Also, and so the next bullet point, number 10 for Hi-Tech, they allege that also on October 13th, 2010, Dr. Moore advised Eichner that DMAA could be found in geranium oil, which had a fairly long history of use as food use as an essential oil, and also provided her the citation to a 1996 scientific study by Ping, which had detected DMAA in geranium oil. Okay, so you have an FDA source kind of, and this is pulled from emails, by the way, but I'm quoting the Hi-Tech statement of facts here. And so, Hi-Tech goes on to allege, Eichner expressed her view that the Ping study was from, quote unquote, a third-rate university in China, and that DMAA was a drug. That's the end of Hi-Tech bullet point 11. And so that was also pulled off of an email. Hopefully I'll have time to throw some screenshots in here and everything. And so I really didn't do any research on that university. No one's talked to this Ping guy. No doubt that Ping study is controversial. Need more data in terms of, is this really a supplement? Because, technology is changing everything. So, number 12, Hi-Tech Pharmaceuticals alleges that Eichner enlisted the aid of the National Center for Natural Product Research at the University of Mississippi, NCNPR, to conduct research regarding DMAA. Her main contact at this entity was Dr. Ikhlas Khan. Dr. Khan was a professor at the University of Mississippi and the associate director of the NCNPR at the university. And so that's Hi-Tech's point 13. Now I'm just going to call this the Ole Miss team. Now these guys, I need to say, these guys are so highly respected in the industry. This is what they do. They are experts. They got botanists. They got all the best machinery. They can find it. And so that's what the assumption is. And they are still doing incredible research. I need to give these guys props. Like when these guys say something, the world's going to believe it because they have resumes that are the size of encyclopedias. So you should see their CVs. It's nuts. They've done so much stuff. And so just need to put it out there. Highly respected gentlemen. Eichner, made a quality choice in choosing, and a lot of the whole depositions go like, why did you choose them? How did you meet them? I'm not going to get into all that. But anyway, bullet point 14, Hi-Tech Pharmaceuticals alleges that Eichner believed that Dr. Khan would conduct the definitive study as to whether DMAA could be found in geraniums. And so here's some questioning from the deposition. And so this is a question by Mr. Mark, who's a Hi-Tech Pharma lawyer. And he says, when conducting a study, do you believe that a researcher should report all data they've obtained in any subsequent peer-reviewed article? Eichner, the witness, valid data, yes. Lawyer, what do you mean by valid data? Answered by Eichner, well, what do you mean by data? And so that's how these depositions start going. Like things spiral a little bit out of control. I don't have the videotapes, so you can't tell how crazy it gets, but it seems like it got a little bit crazy. I mean, that reminds me of a certain president who's arguing about what the definition of the word is. Anyway, so bullet point 15, Hi-Tech Pharmaceuticals alleges that Khan admitted that it was Eichner and her colleague at the USADA, Larry Bowers, who helped form the hypothesis in his first study that DMAA could not be found in geraniums. So I think what Hi-Tech, I'm going to put words into Jared Wheat's mouth a little bit right here. What I think Hi-Tech Pharma is trying to push, what their lawyers are at least trying to push, is that they came in with a predisposed hypothesis that it wasn't there. And they came in, and I believe that Hi-Tech Pharma is alleging that there was some sort of bias because of that. Even though they don't totally say that, I think reading between the lines, that might have been what's happening here. And so that's kind of part of the case that Hi-Tech's trying to make. $25,000 later, this study begins. And so based on emails now, Hi-Tech alleges, and here we go, this is where shit gets crazy. On May 27th, 2011, Eichner told doctors that she had heard a rumor that other researchers had detected DMAA in geranium oil, and she was concerned how this might affect their efforts to lobby FDA regarding DMAA. Dr. Al-Soli responded by informing Eichner that he and his colleagues had developed a very sensitive method to detect DMAA, and that they had indeed found low levels of DMAA in the geranium samples, and that Eichner had supplied to them. This was in an email. I have it right here. I'll paste it up on the screen. And so, but he does say, in the next couple of days, we will conclude all of our testing. Anyway, it appears that the levels are really low in the parts per billion range. So let's wait and see what the final outcome is by the most sensitive method. And so it was found in one method. What's going to happen next? And this is where Hi-Tech Pharma gets all crazy. And you got to realize it wasn't Hi-Tech Pharma who was under attack in this case. It was really USP Labs. But Hi-Tech Pharma seems to have picked up the torch here. So number 20, Hi-Tech Pharma alleges that Eichner and her colleagues at the USADA, Larry Bauer, agreed with Drs. Al-Soli and Khan to avoid positive DMAA test results by raising their detection limit in their published article so that a finding that no DMAA was detected could be reported. This is pulled off an email. And so, I could read you this email. It's a little bit long, but dear Larry, I do agree with your concerns, but we must make sure that if we say it is absent, that we have the data to support that. We can certainly say absent with a specific limit. For example, if we find that samples show on the LC-MS levels of 2 to 8 parts per billion, we can comfortably say absent with a detection limit of 10 parts per billion or something like that. As I said, let's get all the data we can get both by GCMS and LC-MS, and then decide what the best course of action would be. We will all have to be comfortable with what we report. Don't worry. And so that was from an email. And so I'm going to skip to bullet point 60 in Hi-Tech Pharma's and Hi-Tech Pharma's allegations. And they say that the doctors conspired with USADA to change the reporting detection limit in their published article so as to show no DMA was found. They're alleging conspiracy right here. You hear about conspiracy theories, Hillary's emails or whatever. And here we are, right under our very own nose, we have Hi-Tech Pharma alleging conspiracy. And so it just gets wild. And so now it's time. So USADA, obviously they wanted to figure out what is up with this geranium stuff, understandably so. But Hi-Tech Pharma's they're walking on thin ice here because now they're alleging a lot of very serious ethical crimes, if nothing more. I don't know if it's illegal to raise the reporting limit. They're alleging very important ethical issues, and so this Dr. Ikhlas Khan, and so this is where this deposition gets fiery. And I will tell you this: if this case goes to court, this is I don't care where this case is at. If I can attend the trial, I will fly in on the day of this guy's taking the stand because it's this crazy. And I can only imagine what Hi-Tech Pharma's lawyers are going to ask this guy. But you can notice, though, I'm assuming, though, that English is his second language. So you're reading this deposition. The English is not great. Things get confusing. The reporter doesn't always know what's up. It turns into a bit of a shit show. And so, for instance, they're discussing why are Eichner and Bowers, at the USADA, they actually paid for the study. Why are they listed as authors? And so Khan says, because they contributed to the hypothesis and the scientifically. I was not in the lab, I'm the office. And so later on, he goes on and says, Then we talk about is what it is they would like to, what the question is. Would they ask that can we analyze whether DMAA is in the plant or not? And then they contributed into the text of the manuscript. So this opens up a whole can of worms. Well, is it normal for the people who are paying for the study to also contribute not only the hypothesis, but they're also contributing to the actual manuscript? Is that normal? And I honestly don't know the answer to that question, but that's argued a whole lot. And so it comes up. And so regarding the testing, you want to get the most scientific method. You want to get the most analytical method. And it's really going to be up to the judge to determine whether or not this stuff is like the best methods were used. And so Khan says GC method was 0.1 ppm, 0.1 parts per million. And then the lawyer asks, you said GC, what about the LC? And the LC was supposed to be the high resolution one from my understanding. And then his answer was, LC was, I believe it was 10 pp, 10, let me see. What was that? LC was 2.5 ppb. So you have a method that is actually 2.5 parts per billion. They're claiming on the paper, though, Hi-Tech Pharmaceuticals is alleging that they only claim 10 parts per billion on the paper. And so there's questions. If I'm the judge, I'm asking why, if you had 2.5 parts per billion in this test, why only show a detection limit of 10 parts per billion? There's some reasonable questions here. And so, question. So what was the result of the study? Asked the lawyer. I'll be the lawyer over here. So what was the result of the study? Con, we did not find MHA, which is DMAA, in all 20 samples except products. And so by the products, that means the geranium oils that they had off the market and everything. And so it basically turns into this like big shit show. And we're going to get a little bit more into this deposition. And if you look at Hi-Tech Pharmaceuticals press release that we have posted out there on PR Newswire and on our blog, there's a lot of accusations thrown around. These are very highly respected scientists. So Hi-Tech Pharmaceuticals, they're bringing some heat here, like serious heat. And so this judge, you got to look at the history and everything. But apparently they found it when they were measuring at 2.5 parts per billion, but that's not reported. Why not? They switched to a high resolution mode, which was at 10 parts per billion. As a layman judge right now, I'm wondering how is 10 parts per billion limit of detection higher resolution than what you had at 2.5 parts per billion? So, if this goes to court, there's gonna be a lot of discussion over these different testing methods, which I am an engineer by trade, but I admit I don't fully understand this stuff. And so you have to wonder how much is this judge really going to dig into this stuff. And I'm not sure, is he able to pull in other experts, so on and so forth. I'm sure he's going to be reading a lot of books. This might take a while. And so, long story short, Hi-Tech Pharmaceuticals, they're mad because the study was published with no mention that it was ever even detected. But apparently that's what the FDA got. Or so we assume they received the study just like all of us read it in 2012. And and so it was a big blow to USP Labs, obviously. And so now that was the first study. Now let's talk about the next study, which was not conducted by these guys, but Hi-Tech Pharmaceuticals is making some crazy allegations once again. Bullet point 22 of their statement of facts. Eichner helped suppress other test results that showed DMAA to be contained in geraniums suppressed from public view. Eichner gained access to an unpublished version of research results regarding DMAA by Zhang and Armstrong, and she forwarded it to Drs. Khan and El Soli. This was discovered via emails, and so we are not certain. So there's another paper out there, this Zhang paper. We're not sure how they came out, but there was an embargoed paper that came out, and so it's Exhibit 16, and the Hi-Tech's lawyer, his name is Wennick. Wennick Exhibit 16, and so we sent it to Eichner saying. Or someone sent it to Eichner. I'm not sure who it is. There's an email chain. You could probably find it in Exhibit 16. Here's the embargo paper attached. And then Eichner asks, hey, doctors, have you seen this? What are your thoughts? And then guess what happens? Hi-Tech Pharma is connecting some dots that I cannot personally connect myself. But Hi-Tech Pharma is basically, the next thing you know, things are edited. These chromatograms, gone from the paper. They were in there in the first email, not in the published paper. Gone. More chromatograms. You will have never seen this until this court case. More tests. Allegedly finding it. Gone. And a whole shitload of text change in this study. Now, the embargo paper, maybe it wasn't right. Maybe it wasn't done. Maybe they were doing a really bad methodology, and maybe their DMAA wasn't right, or maybe the geraniums that Zhang were testing was spiked or something. But we can't make allegations. But Hi-Tech Pharmaceuticals is calling bullshit on a lot of this, and so another crazy thing is that one scientist between these two papers, these two different versions, and in exhibit like 18. Hi-Tech Pharma has them highlighted. In these papers, one scientist was removed and one was added between these two versions. Why? Well, I would like to talk to those two scientists, and they might end up on the stand if this goes to trial. So that's kind of and so I do need to say though, Hi-Tech states that Eichner helped suppress blah, 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 all that stuff. There's no proof of suppression or anything. So I'm not fully convinced. I guess I'm supposed to be unbiased here. I'm not fully convinced though, in my opinion, that Hi-Tech has properly connected the dots. But it's just one more kind of like data point in like the what's going on here situation. And you have to wonder, is the judge going to be tolerant of this? And so what we do know is that the paper changed. And between the times when the paper changed, between the times when it started and when it was published, it touched certain hands. And Hi-Tech Pharma was not happy about it. So bullet point 23, Hi-Tech alleges, and so this was actually discussed in the Eichner deposition. And they say, Eichner admitted the possibility that either Chi or a colleague at the USADA had communicated with Zhang and Armstrong about the embargoed draft article to try and understand it. So she said they try and understand it. So I'm not sure what that means. But Hi-Tech points it out. They're going to try and understand it. Bullet point 25. Hi-Tech, this is a big one. Hi-Tech alleges that after being in the hands of the doctors, the published version of the Zhang and let me repeat that. Let me start over. After being in the hands of the Ole Miss team, the published version of the Zhang and Armstrong study reported no detection of DMAA. So Hi-Tech is making some serious allegations here. But after this all happened, and I need to say that I just said the Ole Miss team. I'm not sure if they're working in a capacity at Ole Miss. I'm not sure if they're using Ole Miss emails, because there's a lot of these guys have a lot of people have a lot of different businesses, and no one's sure how the money flows and everything. That wasn't part of my investigation, but they do touch upon that in the depositions that the people at Ole Miss, they have a couple different companies and consulting firms that do this and that. But either way, weird things happened. And so finally, now we are at April 2012 right now, just so you have a timeline. April 2012, this is like the post-Arnold of 2012 apocalypse. The warning letters get sent out, and pretty much everyone nearly instantly folds. USP Labs, however, is the last man standing. And so they then fund the Intratech study, and at this point, the FDA, this is going to lead into the FDA's involvement. The FDA, of course, is involved because they just sent out some warning letters and everything. And this brings in Daniel Fabricant. I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, but at the time, and he's no longer with the FDA, he was the director of the FDA's Division of Dietary Supplement Programs as of February 2011. And so the studies that USP Labs was citing, there was the Lee study. And they allegedly did find DMAA in geraniums. So these guys are stating that they didn't find it, but maybe it was detected at one point. These guys are saying they did find it over here. And so bullet point 30, Hi-Tech alleges after the Lee study was found, after the Lee study found DMAA, this prompted Dr. Khan to reach out to NCNPR's federal program officer, Dr. Daniel Fabricant of the FDA. Dr. Khan proposed to Dr. Fabricant a strategy for a new multi-center DMAA study to refute the findings of Lee's work. Now, I cannot make a comment on this because guess what? This email is sealed from the public. So as if there wasn't enough conspiracy, we just got more, and we're going to have even more. Because for whatever reason, I think the laws are, and don't quote me on this, the laws are something like we don't have the process, we don't have like the privilege to see the process and the guts behind the decision making of the inside the FDA. We don't get to see those emails when they're making decisions. That's like process privilege or one of those words. We get to see the end result. And so, and I'm going to bust out my opinion here. I don't like it's not like this was a matter of national security or anything, but either way, these emails are sealed. So we have to take Hi-Tech Pharma's word for it. I'm going to assume they didn't perjure themselves when they wrote this bullet point 30. But either way, that email is sealed, and we don't get to see these Daniel Fabricant emails. So take the word for it or don't. Bullet point 31, Hi-Tech alleges Dr. Fabricant approved the strategy. That's Exhibit 24, and if you look at Exhibit 24, sealed. We don't get to see that. This then led to the 2014 multi-center study, and so the idea is that the doctors at Ole Miss and all got together, or Hi-Tech is alleging that they got together with the FDA, and they want to put together this multi-center study. Let's figure this out once and for all. Is DMAA found in geraniums? I've been going on forever about this, but it's... And so the idea here is that you're going to get DMA, or you're going to get geranium from all different parts of the world, and you're going to test all these different samples at all these different labs. And they want to try to find some from the various areas, like where Ping was at, and where the Lee study was at, and where the Fleming study was at, and try to see if what's real. Make sure stuff's not contaminated, I assume. That's me assuming they're going to make sure they have clean soil. I assume they're going to have clean water. I assume, they're going to try to be like, this is the best study ever. And so Fabricant was deposed over this, and the bombshell from the Fabricant deposition, I couldn't freaking believe what I read here. This study was funded by the FDA for $2.5 million of your tax money, if you're a U.S. citizen, and my tax money. $2.5 million for this study that you and I paid for. And we don't even get to see the emails behind it. And it takes a court case to see some of the things that happen allegedly behind the scenes. $2.5 million. And that's confirmed actually by the current senior advisor at the FDA of supplement programs, Carol Welch, $2.5 million. It might have been more like 2.3, but they keep quoting 2.5. Maybe my adding was wrong. Whew, okay, bullet point 33. Let me take a sip real quick. For those of you who are still with me, thank you. Bullet point 33. One of the four laboratories and this is Hi-Tech alleges, one of the four laboratories working on the multi-center study reported to Drs. Khan and El Soli in April of 2013 that it had indeed detected DMAA in several geranium samples from China. Okay, so when you're reading these email threads, you need to start at the bottom. You know how quoted emails, the older stuff, it goes in order. The older stuff's at the bottom, and then the newer stuff's at the top. So you kind of need to go backwards and read this. And so the email's right here. And so Dr. Yang, I believe, over at the China Materia Medica Institute, I believe. Yeah, Materia Medica. He said, okay, hey, dear Professor Khan, here's the samples, here's the data, basically, and this is me just really summarizing the email because he doesn't say that he found it, but apparently it was in the data. And so, Dr. Khan says, Dear Min, which I believe is just Dr. Yang's name, you have found 2 nanograms in some samples, but it does not match with the report from Professor Wei Dong's lab. I think 2 nanograms is under detection limit. How did you find in these samples? Please confirm the results one more time. Our detection limit has been 10 nanograms. If you say that we did not find anything under 10 nanograms, then we are okay. But if you find 2 nanograms, we need further confirmation. Let me know if you have further questions. Appreciate your help. Okay, which is Ikhlas Khan. And so, fair enough. You got to confirm the data, right? Well, he responds, Dear Professor, and I'm going to read this. Apologies if it's long, but to me, this is important. This is our industry, And so, dear Professor, I checked the data and I have found that 2 milligrams per milliliter of DMAA and MEOH control solution could be detected by the MRM method. So, me breaking off, I'm going to say, I'm not reading the email anymore. He was able to say that the 2 milligrams of a control, 2 nanograms of a control solution was detected by this thing. He knows I weighed out a perfect 2 nanograms. This is tiny doses, but weighed out a perfect 2 nanograms and it did detect it. Cool. So it seems like that detector works. Reading on. The SNR was 38.3. The control solution was diluted from the 1 milligram per milliliter stock solution obtained from your lab. To evaluate matrix effects, 100 microliters of 2 nanogram per milliliter DMAA was added to the 100 microliters S1, S2 sample, assuming that those are the samples that were found. And so what he says is, it was then found that the peak area of the mix was approximately double that of S1, S2. It was approximately, double that of S1, S2. And then he says SNR greater than 3. Thus, I think that 2 nanograms per milliliter could be detected in the samples. The results were different from the report from Professor Zhang's lab, which, there's Hi-Tech will have things to say about Zhang's lab, but let me continue the email. Maybe due to the different amount of materials used in the experiment. 10 grams of S1 and S2 were used for analysis. Please see find detailed information in the attached document. So basically, here's what happened. I have a detector. It detected I had this, solution of geranium stem distilled crap or whatever. And so it detects 2 nanograms of DMAA. Do I believe this or do I not? Is this detector good enough? So what he does is he says, we have a known 2 nanograms of DMAA like powder. The thing does measure the 2 nanograms. I then added the 2 nanograms to the sample that I got that, it said it got 2 nanograms, and voila, the measurement is double. 2 plus 2 about equals 4. So it seems Hi-Tech Pharma is alleging that it seems like this data, this measurement method worked. And Hi-Tech Pharma is alleging that these guys found it and that the MRM method did indeed work, but it wasn't at the detection limit. And so this is where, and this is touched upon in the con deposition. And so the question from Hi-Tech's lawyer. So in response to El Soli's email saying finding a peak does not mean that you have MHA. MHA is a methylhexanamine or DMAA. Dr. Yang goes on responding saying that this is what I found and this is what I did. This is the lawyer's question. And then so Khan says, oh yeah, Dr. El Soli is asking him to confirm it. He's not saying that you hide it. What he's saying is if you found it, you have to confirm it. Then he goes and improves it and follows the same protocol, and then he doesn't find it. So apparently there's an improved method that doesn't find it after they originally found it. Okay, that was me talking there. Let me go back to the lawyer's mode. Question, no. This is the lawyer. Now, if I'm Khan's lawyer right now, I'm going to be like objection argumentative, but he says no. Actually, when he improved the protocol, he found it, correct? Khan. But what he found as MHA, he did not confirm this is MHA. Lawyer, I'm not saying he confirmed it. I'm saying this is what he's saying he found after he improved the protocol. Khan, yeah, but you have to confirm. Other people have reported finding it too, but it doesn't mean it's there. Watch as this devolves a little bit. Lawyer, and what, if anything, did you do, you meaning the laboratory, to prove it wasn't there? Khan, wasn't there? Question. Lawyer, Khan, it's already not there. Lawyer, so you did nothing to Khan, that's lawyer, confirm. Khan, why? Lawyer, that it. Khan, you. Lawyer, was. Khan, the protocol. So they're interrupting each other. It's just a shit show. And so the reporter is like, whoa. She says, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the end of the question. They're all talking all over each other. And so the lawyer again, so you did nothing to confirm that it was not MHA that was detected? That's why you do the MRM, to confirm it. And where is there an MRM on Dr. Yang's sample? Remember, Dr. Yang's the one who allegedly found it at those small doses. Answer, it should be provided. It should be included. I don't have it here, but yes, what they are asking you, if you find it, you have to confirm it. And so there's no MRM for Dr. Yang's sample in your report. There's all this data. Lawyer, and there's no mention of the detection, correct? Yeah, detection limit is 10 parts per billion. Lawyer, so in other words, if you detect something that could be MHA below the detection limit, you're not going to report it in your paper? Khan, you have to confirm it before you report it. Lawyer, okay. And again, I asked you, what steps did you do to confirm it? Answer, yeah, you take the MRM, you analyze it, you analyze it, you do the high resolution mass spec to see whether, reporters, you do the what? And the witness, high resolution mass spec to confirm it. Okay, that's not in this paper? That's not in the paper. Okay. Okay, so I don't even have a comment for this. You got to kind of read this. You have to read this, but basically you have to do, now I'm going to break out and talk. This is Mike talking now. You have to not only find it, but you have to confirm it. But did they try to confirm it? The lawyer's trying to get to this and we're not getting an answer. You know, it seems like he's just saying, no, you have to confirm it. Agreed. But did you confirm it? Did you try to confirm it? That answer is not found. How is the judge going to respond to this? Now, I can tell you that 2 hours ago, I detected that there was a plate in this microwave. But is it confirmed? Have you seen in the last 10 minutes? Have you seen a plate in the microwave? Now, I mean, we're going to bust into all this, all sorts of semantics at this point. Like, how do you know that that microwave didn't open itself and a plate didn't, jump out? Or how do you know I didn't pause the video and take the plate out of the microwave? And so at this point, almost it's like we have Schrodinger's DMAA paradox going on right now. Like, yeah, maybe it was there, but it wasn't confirmed. But until it's not confirmed, is the cat really in the box? Is it dead or not? So I'm not sure. As the judge, I want more information. But and it's really tough because it's English second language. It's intense. It's nerve wracking. You're getting deposed. You got a camera in your face. You have like 4 lawyers in the room. People are gonna be reading this, and so you're well-renowned researcher. You know your stuff, but you're a scientist. You're not you're not necessarily a talker, and so you have to It's frustrating, and so things quiet down, calm down. Maybe they had a recess or whatever. But then the contest deposition does fire up again. This is crazy. And so they say, where in this report is there a single chromatogram or result from the Shanghai Institute? I believe that's the institute where they may have found it. And then he says, I love this. All should be available in supplemental data. If you want, you can. I'm sure it will be available. You found these emails. I'm sure you should have all the data too. I'm like, woo! And so he's like, but yet we have an MRM in Exhibit 9 that shows the detection of DMAA in plant material, correct? The lawyer objects, by the way, so this maybe is not allowed to be used in court of law. And he says, no, we did not find. Lawyer, isn't this what Exhibit 9 says? Isn't that what the MRM says? That MHA was detected? Answer. This is confirmation. This is in April. In May, he asked you to look at your data back. You read the email with it saying, not saying that to hide the results. He is saying confirm because you are finding something. So you better confirm it. And that's a confirmation. Tell me in this email where you see any effort to do additional research to confirm. How do you confirm without doing additional research? That's what I'm asking you. I'm playing the tone there. I'm not sure, but he's like, that's what I'm asking you. Answer. That's what I'm saying. Data should be there. Well, if you can find the data, we'd love to see it. Yes. And so they move on, and it's like, oh my God, this deposition, it's just nuts. And so it's like uncomfortable almost reading it. It's long, takes forever, but I was like, I couldn't believe, what I was reading. Like, is DMAA in the geranium or not? Like, just freaking tell us at this point, dude. We don't know. And so the positive DMAA test results, Hi-Tech Pharma alleges the positive DMAA test results did not make it into the article published. Now, is that because it wasn't confirmed? Is that because it was below the detection limit? It wasn't mentioned at all. But you do have to note that the Chinese lab, which was Materia Medica, or that Materia Medica is the military medical university, is listed at a detection limit of 10 parts per billion. Whew, okay, so, and then at this point in the high-tech statement of facts, the DoD report, they get into DSHEA and they say, you don't need pre-market approval. There have been no serious illnesses that have been caused by DMAA. And in fact, they pull out the DoD's toxicology report, which is interesting because the FDA actually used this report too. They're arguing different sides of this. And they say, soldiers, and we've cited this on our blog before, this DOD report by Colonel Lammy. It was published a while ago, and we missed this. This is huge. Soldiers consuming Soldiers consuming DMAA had 40% lower odds of having an adverse medical outcome. Wow. Okay. So, that is there in the study. So the Department of Defense did the largest survey on all the dudes using Jacked and some Oxy-Elite, but it was really Jacked being used by the military guys like crazy. They loved it in training. And what they found out was that the people using DMAA, most likely Jacked, the people using DMAA were 40% less likely to have an adverse medical outcome. Now, there's a lot of correlation and causation here because the fact is, or not the fact, but the idea is that the Jacked users were the more athletic, fitness-oriented guys. So they're also more likely to be know how to hydrate and to be in good shape and everything. But at the same time, 40%, that's not an insignificant number. That's huge. 40% of people, that's a massive number. This isn't 2 to 3%, non-significant, whatever, a couple people, did a little better. This is almost to the point where it's if you're in better shape and you're using this stuff, you have a less chance of being injured. That's crazy. I mean, I can't believe I missed that. Now, per Kara Welsh of the FDA, in her deposition, Hi-Tech states that synthetic ingredients can be dietary ingredients under the DSHEA. So you have an FDA person kind of saying that, and her quote really from her deposition is this, and this isn't law, this is just someone's deposition, but you have people at the FDA who do believe that these synthetic ingredients, when made in a lab but found in nature, can be, that they can be used in dietary supplements. And she says, my thinking has expanded, but I ultimately still believe synthetic ingredients can be dietary ingredients. That's from her deposition. And then Hi-Tech then goes on to say, we do synthetically produce it, but hey, it's been found here. It keeps getting found. It keeps getting found. It keeps getting found. Sometimes things happen, but it keeps getting detected. And so from the Welsh deposition, though, they ask her, the Hi-Tech lawyers ask, are geraniums dietary ingredients? To which she answer, geranium would be considered an herb or other botanical, so yes, it would be a dietary ingredient under Section 201 FF1C of the Act. They then say, and would a constituent of a geranium be a dietary ingredient? And she says, yes, and this isn't law, this is just someone's deposition, but she says, yes, a constituent of a geranium would be considered a dietary ingredient according to Section 201 FF1F of the Act. And then they ask, would an extract of a geranium be a dietary ingredient? And she says, yes, an extract of a geranium would be a dietary ingredient according to Section 201 FF1F of the Act. Hi-Tech then argues it's not an additive, and they have experts from both sides of the story are stating that geraniums are very complex. They have scores of compounds, possibly constated that there are hundreds. Only 90 have been identified, and then there are 3 FDA experts, Kahn, Brown, and Kavabic, and he's not an FDA expert. Kavabic actually worked for Flora Medical, I believe, but he was analyzing some of this stuff too, apparently. And they state that there is no evidence of tampering or contamination in the samples that were used by the researchers, which I tried to allude to earlier. And so this is all Hi-Tech's allegations. Finally, as if we're not done yet, we're getting there. Still, other people found it. This gentleman, James Kavabic, from Flora Research Labs, bullet point 66, Hi-Tech Pharmaceuticals alleges that James Kavabic omitted from his expert report that he personally detected DMAA in geranium oil samples too. And they're stating that from his deposition that he had found it. And here's how the questioning goes on that one. And what were the geographic origins of the extracts? The extracts were the country origin claim was China. Do you know a province of China? The lawyer asks. Answer, no. When you analyze the extracts, what were you looking for? In the extracts, I was looking for DMAA. Lawyer, and what were the results? Kavabic. There were some samples that had it and some samples that didn't. Once again, people keep detecting it. Is that confirmation? Is it validation? Is that a peer-reviewed study? No, but it keeps getting found. And Hi-Tech is had it. But wait, we're not done. Someone else. In emails to Dr. Khan, and this is bullet point 68, Hi-Tech alleges. In emails to Drs. Khan and El-Soli, Amy Eichner noted that one of the labs used by the USADA banned substances control group had detected DMAA in geranium oil samples provided by USADA, and she sought the advice from Drs. Khan and El-Soli about this. And that was from her deposition. They got that piece of information. Now, if you remember our cage muscle reviews, we talk about how they do banned substance testing, and we point out those labels right there. That's the group right there that Cage Muscle uses to test their supplements. Many others do as well. I'm not sure that they would ever go on the stand and say that they found it or anything, but at the same time, that group potentially found something too, or at least he was messing around with it, and there's an email to Eichner possibly that it was found. And so Hi-Tech's like, how many people have to find this stuff before we can agree that it's found in nature? What is, that's where they're getting with this. Scientists, and then so a lot of the questions are about the biological pathways. How can a geranium stem make this? And so Hi-Tech alleges that scientists have not identified all of the biosynthetic pathways for plants. So it's possible that we just don't know yet. It's kind of what they're alluding to. And basically all FDA, all the expert witnesses are saying, hey, we haven't seen all of the pathways. There's no way of knowing everything. I mean, 30 years ago, we didn't know about omega-3 fatty acids. We were eating margarine. Jesus. And so, Hi-Tech then goes on to state that DMAA is GRAS. They're going for GRAS status here. They're going for generally recognized as safe. And they're not, and it's not a food additive. This is GRAS. I don't even know if they need that or what, but they're like going for broke here. So I'm going to turn on the light over here. Let me pause it. Resumed. Okay, I don't even know if that helped or anything. The sun is setting as I do this video. Who's here still with me? First person to comment and say like, Mike123 gets a free t-shirt if you're in the US, because thanks for hanging with me. Anyway, so you think that this case is like Hi-Tech's kind of shut the case down and everything, or not shut the case, but they're trying to prove this point. It keeps getting found in nature, keeps getting found in nature, keeps getting found in nature. Therefore, they can synthetically produce it and make it into a supplement. Therefore, their DMAA is legal. Therefore, the FDA seizure is illegal. They want their stuff back and they want to be able to legally sell it. Anyway, we're not done. Now, Jared Wheaton team are going for broke. They are going full on conspiracy mode. Bust out the Alex Jones video. Hi-Tech alleges in bullet point 79, NCNPR officials, notably the government's expert Dr. Khan, regularly communicated with FDA officials about the status and progress of the research and sent draft manuscripts to the FDA for review. And that was brought forth from the Welsh deposition, who's currently at the FDA, and the Khan deposition. And then further, bullet point 80, Hi-Tech alleges that Dr. Khan referred to Dr. Daniel Fabricant of the FDA as his boss. Now, I can't make a comment about that because, once again, that email is sealed. We are not privy to that information. Further, Hi-Tech alleges that the FDA/government was directly involved with Dr. Khan to craft research to refute other scientists' work that found DMAA in geraniums. Dr. Khan provided a strategy, they quote, to Dr. Daniel Fabricant of the FDA for what ultimately became that 2014 multi-center study. That was Exhibit 23 again, and an email to Dan Fabricant, sealed. We don't get to see it. And so they're going for broke. They're not just alleging conspiracy, they're alleging collusion. I don't think they use the word collusion, but they might have used the word colluded. I don't think Wheat's going to argue. I don't think he's going to sue me over that. Anyway, so Hi-Tech further alleges, bullet point 82, Dr. Fabricant approved Khan's strategy for the new study. That is also sealed. I don't know if that's important, but yeah. So there's back and forth going on between these parties. In the meantime, in my opinion, USP Labs is sitting there like, no comment. And so Hi-Tech argues that the researchers then gave presentations where Dan Fabricant was in attendance, and those researchers stated that the studies never found DMAA. And they're alleging all sorts of crazy conspiracy here. Oh my God. So we're still going. I apologize over this video is long, but it's crazy. So like you have this short, simple case. Hey, DMAA is not found. It's per the FDA. And then you have these Hi-Tech Pharma going to town like, no, it was detected here. It was detected here. It was detected here. This is a conspiracy. This is collusion. Oh crap. And so Jared Wheat, he's like, by the end of this, I think he's very confident in this case because the way he's behaving in his deposition, I'm going to give you some legal advice. I know I'm not a lawyer. I don't think you should behave like this in any court of law or in any deposition, obviously. But at this point, it sounded like he's really cocksure. And so he says, this is Jared Wheat, now I'm over here. I can't be expected to know every question about everything, especially some sub-regulation of 21 U.S.C. 348. I do not know how to suborn perjury. Wait, no. He says, I do know how not to suborn perjury. I do know how not to ask my lawyers to put something in a declaration and then not stand behind it like you've done with Dr. Khan. So he's attacking the FDA's lawyer. He's saying that they have done things to suborn perjury. He's not even attacking the doctors. He's like, no, the doctors had this evidence and he's attacking the FDA over it. And so he's going up the chain saying that this is the U.S. federal government. And those were my words. He says, Jared Wheat says, I do know how not to break the law, which I think you have done, telling the FDA's lawyer. But I'm not going to sit here and speculate as to what 21 U.S.C. 348 is. And so they're mad that, his lawyer had signed off on that they argued something with the FDA in the paperwork. But Jared Wheat, he didn't actually sign that. His lawyer did, but he came deposed as the company's representative. And the lawyer is like, hey, you should know what this is. You guys signed on it. He's like, well, my lawyer signed on it anyway. And then he's like, oh, by the way, you guys are criminals, is kind of like what he just said there. Wow. And so another question from a lawyer. Question, I don't think that actually answered my question, and that what they were talking about in that case about what would happen if DMAA wasn't in geranium after Wheat had said that the Khan study was perjured, which we read way earlier in the beginning of this video, if you remember that. And so the lawyer's like, the U.S. government lawyer is like, I don't think that actually answered my question. And then Jared Wheat says, I'm saying if DMAA is not a natural constituent, no, let me rewind. So the lawyer is like, I'm saying, if DMAA is not a natural constituent of a botanical, what is your understanding of the consequences of that? Answer by Jared Wheat. I mean, we could talk in speculation if you want to. And he's got like a southern accent, I can't do it well. In speculation, if, the world's flat, then then we're going to fall off the world. We now know the world is round, but I could answer the question with the world is flat type mindset and say that, it would be an unapproved new drug. But we now know the world is round, and therefore I can say with 100% certainty that 1,3-dimethylamylamine is in the geranium plant. And so later on, he goes on to continue. I mean, I understand you all's position. You took a position. You all rolled snake eyes, but the fact is, it's in geranium. And so he's basically instigating at this point. It's unbelievable. I've never read anything like this. Like, this is like out of a TV show. And so he's either extremely confident in his case. We all know he's got balls, but dude. Okay, oh yeah, by the way, he also called out the lawyer of the U.S. government. This lawyer apparently used to work for one of the firms that Wheat had worked with in the past, and he says, you should know better. He said like, this other law firm should have taught you better or something like that. He's just like attacking this lawyer at this point. And another funny thing is like they ask him why he didn't join any of these trade organizations. And so Jared Wheat says, I don't believe any of these guys are worth paying the money to be members of. None of them lobby, do anything. And then if I want to stand up to the government, I'm always the sole person on my own island. They all run, so... And then later on he goes, you guys just try to get everyone to go boo and run. We didn't run. And part of that reason why I don't join these kind of Mickey Mouse organizations. And so here you go, Hi-Tech Pharma fighting the fight all alone. Jared Wheat going so all in. He's basically attacking government lawyers. He's calling them perjurers. And there's a lot of evidence there's a lot of emails that if authenticated, because I don't see like DKIM authentication, kind of like WikiLeaks had to do with all those like creepy ass emails that are pumping out during the election and all that. But so I don't know. These are all the allegations. I don't know if these emails are real. I don't know if they're doctored. We don't know anything. But there is like this mass amount of allegations of conspiracy here. And so what's this judge going to do? That's the question. And so, I have opinions. I'm going to break off this video because you've been suffering long enough. It's been well over an hour. The point is that this case is coming to a head, and I don't think it's as simple as anyone seems, because they have allegedly found emails that might undermine a lot of this case. And he's going straight to the top and implicating the U.S. government. And if you look at his press release, he's going after them. And so here we are, March 1st, 2017, Hi-Tech Pharmaceuticals countersuing U.S. federal government, and they are clearly very confident in their case. Stay tuned to PricePlow. Thank you for watching. Mike456, if you are here, and I'm going to send you a tub of pre-workout or something for the first person who comments, because thank you for listening. This case is out of damn control, and I appreciate you watching. PricePlow.com. Compare prices, save money, and save my voice. Thank you.